Welcome to today's session and thank you for joining us. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Shelley Ivanetti, the Practice Manager for Queensland and the Business Intelligence Manager. With us today we also have Joanne Hand, she's the General Manager for our New Zealand operations, and Amanda Clegg, our Customer Marketing Manager, who has assisted us in providing this webinar today. We also have with us Mike Kimbrough. Mike is the founder and managing director for Solvar Asia Pacific, and he has more than 25 years experience in the industry. And so without further ado, I'll hand over to Mike as he'll be doing the presentation for us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Going to go to today's agenda real quickly. I'm not going to go through each of these items. You can kind of get a quick snapshot of what we're going to cover today. There's a lot of things that we're going to cover. I'm not going to talk about necessarily what's new with Solvar versus BI360 because virtually everything is new. Probably the only thing that you'll see today that will be familiar will be kind of how the reports or budget templates are designed. We're not going to spend a lot of time in design, but I will show you a quick edit. What I'm going to really do is just really try to show you a general overview of the depth and breadth of the Solvar application. Once we're done with that, I will come back. We'll spend a few minutes and talk about some of the benefits of migrating to the Solvar application. And then just really quickly, we'll cover some resources and how to learn more about the Solvar application. Most of those resources will be located on the Solvar website. So one of the big changes that everybody should be aware of is that we used to say it was Solvar BI360 with the product, Solvar was the company. With the new product, and I say new, it's about 5 years old now, but with the new product, it's just Solvar, the company and the product, and that will be the way it is moving forward. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the product. So the first thing that you're going to notice is that I'm in a cloud environment, Azure cloud environment, right? So I'm in the demo environment. I'm going to give you the depth and breadth of the product. You'll see that over on the left-hand side, I have a lot of different functionality. I'm a super user. So if my only role within the company was reporting, I would only see my report templates and the home page. If I was just contributing to a budget, I would only see the input templates and again, the home page. Every user will have the home page. So the menu is very well designed specifically for each user, okay? So that's configured when you set up the Solvar application. So from the homepage, a couple of cool things that you can do. One is you can get support. So most of you are familiar with the documentation. If you've worked with BI360 and you've gone into the customer portal, this is a completely revamped support portal. So there's all the documentation is obviously there if you like to download and read white papers and such. There's also a forum in there, so complete customer forum if you want to submit any questions to the Solvar employees, the partners, and even customers provide feedback in there. It's a great place to go in and search for different criteria about Solvar. The last component would be the Solvar Academy. So if I open up, I've already launched the Solvar Academy. So this is something that's new that wasn't around previously. This is an e-learning environment, self-paced e-learning environment. So I can actually go in here, lots of different courses, and I can search, reporting, for example. And you're going to start to see that I have all of these different courses that I can go and take related to reporting. So it's not just Solvar related, but it's really everything about Solvar. So if I was in there looking for classes on Excel or Power BI, I would be able to find those classes as well. So you can really, self-paced, you can really learn anything related to the Solvar application. And if you wanted to, you could actually become certified. You can take the tutorials at the end of each of these lessons. Okay. So with that, I'm going to go into the Solvar application. Everything, as everyone knows, starts with reporting within the Solvar application. So here's my report library. So these are all of my reports. You'll notice that I have all of these different categories. I build a lot of these categories on the fly because I do a lot of product demonstrations. but there's really a lot that you can do. You can, you could have your favorites. If you just wanted to search within your favorites, you could do that. You might have a step-by-step process within your monthly reporting. So if you said, I want to file certain reports under step 1, you'd be able to, really build any type of category that you want. This doesn't replace the process manager that we have here. If you had a particular process, this is something that's also new in the Solver application. But if you wanted just to file things in a certain order, you have the ability to do that. If you wanted to create a new category on the fly, very simple, just select new category and create that within seconds, okay? So the other cool thing is if I wanted to search my reports and I said search for P&L, what you'll notice is it brought back all of my P&Ls. If I start to drag this down, you'll see I have a lot of P&Ls, more than 50 different P&Ls. This kind of sets the pace for everything that we're going to talk about today. It doesn't matter whether it's a financial report, operational report, statistical report, or budgets or forecast templates. You can build as many variations or versions of those reports that you want, okay? So you could have, literally, hundreds of operational reports or versions of P&Ls, right? So a lot of ability there. And then you also have the ability to search within the categories. So if I wanted to search my consolidations, specific function, my consolidations, and look for P&Ls, I could do that. I can actually search multiple categories, okay? So I'm gonna go into, really quickly, I'm gonna go into my favorites, and I'm just gonna launch a report. You'll notice before I do that, if I hover over it, it invokes this little checkbox. There's a lot of things that you can do here as well. And one of the things you'll notice is that if I scroll down, I have 2 reports in here that are the maroon color. What that's telling me is that this is a report package. So at any point in time, if I just want to select multiple reports like I did here, I can just go up and add those to a report package or report book, right? So I could either add it to an existing package or I could create a new package on the fly. So very, very simple to do that. And that's just one of the ways that you can create report packages. We also have in our report archive the ability to create playlists. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this report. And I'm not going to get into all of the features. I'm just going to try to cover some of the main ones, important ones, because we are limited on time today. But the first thing that you're going to see here, obviously, and just like you are familiar with in BI 360, is that this report was built in Excel. So I see the conditional formatting, I've got expansion groups. So if I wanted to, these are just techniques. If I want to build a report and I want to be able to see, have an expansion group and I want to actually be able to see the individual periods, I can always do that, right? I can also do that. If you notice, if I scroll down, you'll see that I have that at a little bit more detailed level. So if I wanted to expand something like salaries and benefits, I'd be able to look at a little bit more detail without actually having to drill into the report. As you know, with Solver, same as BI 360, you can always drill into the numbers. So if I wanted to see what made up that $550,000, I could just select the general ledger. There's no general ledger detail there, so let's go and select just general ledger information. So I could see sample data, not a lot of transactions, but I can see the transactions that make up that number. And then I can pop right back into the report. So one of the other things that you'll find really powerful with the Solver application versus BI 360 is that you can put notes virtually anywhere in the system. It doesn't matter if it's at the field level, if you're doing budgeting at the line item level, if you want to put comments about a report, you have the ability to put comments everywhere. So if I wanted to go through and add a new comment in here, I could do that. And then normally there would be a little save button. I just removed it so that people don't, it's a shared environment, they don't save comments. But you'll also notice if I scroll down a little bit further, you'll see that I have that same capability just to go into, full-time. I'm in my salary and benefits, and I can go into full-time salary and add comments as well. So in addition to that, you'll also notice that I have a comment sheet. So with the Solver application, you can always have multiple tabs. So I have a tab here that covers instructions to the user. These are demo instructions, but these could be instructions to the user on what to look for. Or I could have a comment sheet. So the comment sheet is something that's new for Solver. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to build an unlimited number of comment templates. I've only got one, which you see here. And then I can add that sheet in here and then, add comments accordingly. So I spent a whopping 5 minutes building this comment sheet, but this comment sheet was also built in Excel. So if you think about different things you'd like to capture within a report, I'm not just capturing data inside of the report, I'm actually capturing data related to the report. So if anybody ran this company filter, so for the US, for this budget scenario, for this period, they would see this comment template. It will be here for the life of the report, along with the comments that I would have added here at the product revenue level, okay? So as most of you will be familiar with, parameters are throughout Solver. So, we have lots of different ways to go through and select parameters. If this is department, company, customer, project, anything, it all kind of works the same. So this is in addition to trees, which we also have. I won't be diving too much into that today, but if I wanted to select multiple companies, I can do that and just use that value and rerun the report. So very simple to do. Most of you should be familiar with the budget scenario, so you can see that if I go and add my headers here, you'll see that in column G, I have a budget. If I wanted to, maybe I have multiple versions of budgets and or a forecast, and I'd like to change this, I can always go up to the scenario and say, show me budget version number 15, or I could show a forecast or what if scenarios, whatever that might be. And if I run this report again, it will bring back those figures instantaneously. It'll also change the title here as well. So it'll say forecast versus budget, okay? So a lot that you can do within the system. A couple of things, I can add reports to the archive. So archive reporting, as you see over here, is also a type of user. So think about a static report user that has a lot of functionality. So they can't drill into the data within a report, but they can actually drill down, but they can't, it's a static report. They can't change parameters, but they can drill into the report. They can read comments, all that type of stuff in the report actually has to be published to them. So this is new, and I'll get into this in just a minute. But it's also great if I want to archive a report to myself, think pre-close, post-close, if I'm doing eliminations, pre-eliminations, post-eliminations. Something that was really cumbersome within the BI 360 product that is super easy here. If I want to go and share this report with anybody, I want to share this with Archie, or I want to share this with Bud, I can just do it this quickly. I don't need to worry about what data Archie has access to, or what type of user Archie is, because that was already set up when we set them up as a user. So if they didn't have access to my Australia company, for example, they wouldn't be able to see it. I wouldn't have to worry about limiting that report for them. Very, very simple to share reports with users. Also, about comments. So also we have the ability to export out to Excel. I'm going to say this, if you work with Solver before, with BI 360 before, you're going to know that we're all about Excel. So that relationship has just gotten closer, right? So virtually everything that you would expect Excel to do will transfer from Excel into the Solver cloud and vice versa. So what I mean by that is I just exported data. Now this is a static report, but you can see I have all the expansion groups, everything works as you would expect. I can't drill into the data, but if I had to save those comments, they would be here. You can see I have a directions tab. I have a comment sheet with all the information, and the report is as you would expect it, along with all the formulations. So here's my variance formula, right? That equals F18 minus G18. And if I were to go into my variance percentage, you can see it's a standard if error Excel formula. So everything is as you would expect it to be, okay? So a very easy way to share this, and you can share these Excel reports with as many people as you want without them purchasing any type of user. So that's really important as well. So I'm going to close this report down, go back into the cloud. So probably the last thing that I want to talk about is editing a report in the designer. And I said early on, I'm not going to get into building, but I will kind of quickly talk about this. So something that's really cool, if I go into a report, so let's just say I'm going to go into Mike's favorites, and I'm going to pick this report here. So if I were to go through here, I'm sorry, I'm going to unclick that report. If I were to go through here and select this report, all the options pop up. One of the options that I have is I have the ability to duplicate this report. So if I wanted to duplicate this report, and let's say I was doing this report for Shelly. This is Shelly's 2022 P&L, right? So if I was doing this report for Shelly, I'm copying an existing report. So I put in, I duplicated a report. Shelly wants this report, but she doesn't want, let's say, the comment section, or she doesn't need a particular column. I could actually edit it from here. You see that it will allow me to edit it, but I'm just going to go and show you that this is just a duplicate of a report first off. It's going to remember the parameters that were last saved, so I can go ahead and run that report. And I'll point out to you, this isn't even a production environment. This is a demo environment. Production environments are about 30% faster. So you get a real feel. I have 28 companies in here, lots and lots of data. So you get a real feel for kind of the speed of the application, even in the demo environment. So here's the report, right? And again, I could have just edited it from where I was, but I wanted to show you that it was just a copy of an existing report. So 2 clicks away, I can duplicate a report. And then I say I'm going to edit this report. So I'm going to go out into the report designer. So I literally went from the Azure cloud out to my Excel desktop. And this is the only time you'll ever leave the cloud, is if you want to design a report or a budget template, or if you want to contribute to a budget. You can also contribute to a budget or a forecast in Excel as well. So you have the option to do the cloud or Excel. And one of the benefits there is you have the ability to run formulas and such. So I won't get into too much build, but this should look familiar to most of you if you've ever built anything in BI 360. Very similar concepts, only it's light years ahead, and it's greatly improved. So what Shelly said was she didn't want the comments template, so I'm simply going to go through and I'm going to delete that. And maybe I'm going to change the color so that we know that this is a modified report, and then I'll also put in Shelly's report. Okay, just so you know, it's already in the title, but just so that you know, but it doesn't really matter what change I'm going to make or what edit I'm going to make. It all works exactly the same. And by the way, if I go here, you see that my formula for the variance when I'm actually designing is the same exact formula. My formula for variance percentage is exactly the same formula. So exactly what you would expect to write in Excel is going to be moving up into the cloud as well. So again, I have all of my data here. These all shrink down when we do the presentation, but these are all data modules as well, okay? So I could run the report to look at it, but it's a pretty simple change. So this is what's really cool. All I have to do is just say save. Now I'm not saving this to my desktop. I'm not saving this to a folder. I don't need to, because I can pull it out of the cloud at any time that I want, right? So I just say, okay. So from an Excel perspective, I can just close Excel down. Pop back into the application. It's going to tell me a report changes were detected. I need to refresh that report. It's going to force me to rerun that report. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's rerun the report. And by the way, I could actually make this report larger or smaller if I want to expand the view in Excel. But there's also tons of different ways that I can do that within here too. I can always expand or collapse things if I wanted to, right? So I have the ability to do that all throughout Solver. But you'll notice now that here's that edited report, just like that. No demo magic. That's exactly how it works in the real environment, okay? So I have Shelly's report. I removed the comment section. The remainder of the report works exactly the same way. If I wanted to drill down into that report, everything is there as I would expect it to be, okay? So I'm going to fly through some of this stuff. I'm going to kind of get out of reporting. You get the idea of this. And by the way, when I go into budgeting, you'll notice that everything that I've talked about so far works exactly the same with respect to budgeting. So I want to cover off. I want to cover off the report archive really quickly. And you have different views, by the way, on how you can view your reports. So you can either do a view like this, or you can do the card view to look at reports. And that was in the same environment where I was as well. So one of the things that you'll notice in here is that if you want to do any type of side-by-side comparison for reports, I will find a couple here. So R104, you can see it's the same exact report. Actually, I want this one. Same exact report, but one is for Singapore, one is for the US. I can select any number of reports, and then I can say open those reports. So again, this is a user type as well. So not only can I archive reports to myself, but it's also a user type. So this is the over-under view. I don't really like this, so I'm going to switch that view to side-by-side. So here I am looking at Singapore and the US, but I can simply just scroll down into each of these reports and compare numbers and drill in and do all that kind of stuff. And everything is there as I would expect it to be. So had I originally have archived a report to myself or send it out to an archive user, you'll notice they have all the same abilities. They can expand and drill down and do all of that stuff. They just don't have the ability to change the parameters. So you're giving them a published view on essentially what's a static report, but with the ability to drill down. And again, the notes and the comments all come along with it as well. Okay. So the other cool thing about Report Archive is playlists. So a lot of you are doing board presentations today. So you can see I have consolidations, budget presentation, an unlimited number of playlists I can create. So I selected board presentation. These are the 4 reports that are within that presentation. And all I have to do is say, show the playlist. So with the publisher, which you should be familiar with, some of you will be familiar with, think subscriptions. I can get whatever reports that I want at whatever frequency that I want, whatever format that I want, and that's by user, right? So you could actually publish these out to users. They get an email, they get a link, they can just go directly into this playlist. They could also have Excel or PDF along with that as well. So the Excel dashboards are here, but I got to tell you, I haven't created any of these in a long time. Mostly now I do Power BI, and we'll talk about that towards the end of today's session. But you can see I can just hover over the different reports, and I say, oh, I want to run this briefing card. So the briefing card, it's going to give me some KPI or some analysis of how the business is doing for this period. Right, I can scroll down, I can look at all the information, I can drill into everything the same as you would expect. And then I can also look at the data that's related to that report as well. And then I can just go on to the next report. What you'll notice about this particular report in the playlist is it's also a report package. So I have a narrative here, an auto narrative, but I also have additional reports that are within this environment. So sales, payments, another P&L variation, et cetera. So something that's cool, if you haven't worked with this before, this functionality is auto-generated. So yes, you know that I've created, I ran the report for the US, and you knew that I ran it for the period of April, but how does it know that there was great improvement? How does it know the profitability this month was great? I didn't type in any of this. It's all based off of drivers that I built into the report. So I determined what's good, great, or poor with respect to revenue compared to this period last year, this period last quarter. Maybe it was a percentage or a dollar amount that I put in, but all of this narrative is being generated automatically. Okay. So a lot to show, really to show, and I'm cruising by this. But I just want to be able to kind of give you a flavor of the entire system. So I am going to move into budgeting. So I'm going to just talk really quickly about the different types of budgeting and forecasting. So one is, if I just pick any form, so I'll go in here and pick this other expense template as an example. And by the way, if you see this, all this means is that instead of me going to select these parameters individually, if I run the configuration before, I can just quickly select it here. So it's just basically a shortcut to what you see here. So I don't have to open up something and say, oh, pick this department or this company. It'll do it automatically. So if you haven't worked with the budgeting solution before, or maybe you have, this is light years away from what you would have known within the BI 360 environment. So again, built in Excel, the introduction of parameters. I'm now in the role of budget manager, so I'm controlling, the design, the assignment to the contributors. So I really control everything. Now, if this has data, as you see now, I can go in and I can edit this data, right? I could change this to $50 or do whatever I wanted because I'm the budget manager, right? I can also expand the view if I wanted this to have a little more space to contribute, but I really want to keep this open so everybody can see it. So if I scroll over to the right, you'll notice that I have actuals along with forecast information. And as with everything in the Solver demo environment, if it's yellow, it means you can change the numbers, you can contribute. And so obviously I can't change any actual or forecast data. It knows that I'm forecasting for March because I selected the last actual period of March. So I can do a lot of different things. I can also incorporate other templates. So here you see a payroll template again, nothing can be changed here. Maybe I wanted to do some Excel, conditional formatting to look at indicators, or I want to create a graph to see how I'm trending. I can do all of that information. I can also, design this. Obviously, I can go out and edit in the design mode. I can also decide what policies, procedures, instructions that I provide for the users. These are demo instructions again, but you get it, right? So once I do all of this, I can start assigning it out to the different contributors. Now, in this role, I have the ability to change parameters, but you may or may not want the contributors to, right? I can go into different departments. You may or may not want contributors to change these parameters, so you have full control over that, okay? So very easy from a management perspective. Now, if I went out to assignments, so this is new. Definitely, you would never have seen any of this within the BI 360 environment. You'll notice that I have individual assignments. So why would I want to have individual assignments? This is great if you only have one sheet, obviously, but if you have a forecast that you're updating regularly and you don't want it to close, right? Like you would your annual budget, you don't want to keep it open forever. You want to say contribute from this date to this date, and then we're gonna end the the budgeting process, right? So you have the ability to do this. And one of the things you'll notice here is that you'll see this one has department and it says let the user decide. So what this template is telling me is that the budget manager allowed for me to change department parameter, but everything else is locked. So that's what I was saying. You can decide whether you want somebody to change something. So if I open up my typical assignments, I scroll down, you'll see I have, this is my annual budget. I have 2 that I haven't started, 3 that are in progress, and 3 that I need to approve, and 2 that are completed. So I'm going to go into the in progress one for other expenses, same exact template. But what you'll notice is I haven't been given the privilege to change any of these parameters. So yes, I know where I'm contributing, but I don't have any of the privilege to change any of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand all of this up. Before I do that, by the way, any contribution I make, so let's just say I did $400 here. Any contribution I make will allow me to save it. If I finish my budget, I would select complete assignment, and then I would not be allowed to make any additional changes. So I'm going to go ahead and expand this up. So I made this change here. I've worked with Excel before, right? So I'm going to just drag this all the way across the year. So I said, I'm going to do 400 across the year. And if I wanted to add a comment, you already know I can do this anywhere in the system. So if life was that easy, we'd all be super happy, right? But we know it's never going to be that easy. So if I wanted to, and I wanted to dive into greater detail, I can open up my spreading and line item detail. So what this will allow me to do, now you see that I'm on this row, I have my main line here. I can go in and say, well, I don't want to make this, 4,800. I'd like to make this 5,800, right? And then I can go through and I can choose one of my spreading methods. And by the way, this is so easy. This was a very back-end process in BI 360. So if you've ever worked with it, you'd know it. Here, if I want to create spread methods and I have access to that, I can do it within a matter of a couple of minutes. So if you have seasonality or however you want to do this, you can do it. But you can see I'm spreading this evenly, so I just simply say spread, right? So it's now spread that 5,800 evenly across the year. Or I could have said, you know, let's spread this, let's adjust this based on last year's budget. And maybe I want to offset a couple of periods because things have been a little not normal. So I move that little green cursor a couple of periods either forward or backwards. And then I could go through and I could adjust this. So if I said I wanted to adjust this plus or minus 15%, if I had a units-based budget, I could do units as well, and I could just say adjust. So it took that last year's budget and adjusted that 15%. So the other, I can skip around anywhere in here just by moving my mouse or moving my cursor. But you'll notice if I go up here and I scroll down, that under other supplies, you'll see these little red triangles. That indicates that I have line item detail. So if I wanted to, I can come in here really quickly. Oops. I could come in here really quickly and just start adding line item details. So I already have a bunch, but you know, vendor number 4, right? And then you'll notice there's no spreading method, but as soon as I hit a box, it's going to ask me if I want to use that last spreading method. And I don't want to. I just want to type in 800. And the other thing that you'll notice is that I can add line item detail comments. So comments, right? So you'll see here that I've already added some in the past, all of which you can report off of. So great amounts of detail. And then again, I can just collapse this down when I need to. I can go back to my instructions if I have any questions. And as always, I can go and look at all that same detail, actuals, forecasts, you know, other templates, all that kind of good stuff. If I happen to need to make any comments I could have a contributor and a manager column here if I wanted to, but if I needed to make any comments related to this template to the approver, I could do that as well right here. And then I could just go back into save my data or, you know, complete my assignment very, very easily, okay? So workflows, just really quickly, I'm going to give you the 2-minute version because I'm running over time. It's asking me if I want to save my data. I'm going to leave, but if I went into the workflow and I said, show me the status. So you'll remember that I had 2 that were new that I hadn't started, 3 that were in progress, and 3 that I needed to approve. So very easy. You could also build reports on this, but very easy to see where you are within the budget process, not just by individual, but also by template or by the status. So very easy to do that. It's also really, really easy to do the configuration of work assignments, right? So, or workflow assignments. So you can see how easy this is by user. I could just go through, I can't change or modify one once it's been done, but I could just go through and select the templates that I want for the individuals. This is a very, very easy process for workflow. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about Power BI. So, and the integration. So some of you may know from BI 360 that Solver used to build our own dashboard tools. Well, we got away from that, and you know, as a completely Microsoft solution, right? Our data warehouse is Microsoft SQL Server. We use Excel. We're only available in Microsoft Azure Cloud. As a Microsoft solution, we took made the strategic decision to align ourselves with Power BI. So all of the data that you're pulling across your enterprise and all the data that you're contributing from your budgets and your reports and your forecasts can all be reported on within Power BI. Okay, so really the difference is that Solver is going to do a lot of the formatted, row, column, cell type of reporting and budgeting, where Power BI is going to be more the visual analytics. So if I were to go into Power BI, you will see that it's pulling all of the same data from the data warehouse. That's what the certified integration does. You go into Power BI, you say, let's use the Solver Microsoft certified integration, and then that brings in all the security and all of the data for Power BI. So it's one source for all of your data. So when you go through these different dashboards, and I have quite a few, I'm just going to show you one and show you some of the things that are kind of trending and where the market is going with respect to the relationship between CPM tools and Power BI. So one of the things that you'll notice here is that there's these links, these hyperlinks. So if I wanted to, I could come into this Power BI simulation and I can say, I'd like to change my product revenue and increase it by 25%, right? I'm doing a cash flow simulation. I'd like to change my services revenue and increase that by 20%. And you'll notice as I'm going through all of this that the ending cash balance is changing. Everything is being affected based on any change that I'm making here. So once that's done, then I could say, okay, I could go through different models of this and I could change. I could say I don't want to use April or whatever it might be. Then I could go through and I could actually link back to Solver into the template. So in this case, a cash flow budget or a balance sheet budget, and I can make those edits on the fly. Okay. So that's kind of where things are going today, but all the types of dashboards that you would want to do, it doesn't really matter. You know, you want to do any type of visualization. It's all about how you want to deliver information to your customer, formatted or in visual analytics like Power BI, so dashboards. Here's a couple more examples. So lastly, kind of transitioning into this, where do you go to find out more information or see some of this? I mean, obviously you can talk with the microchannel team and we can do demonstrations that are specific to your organization, but I'll tell you, there is a wealth of knowledge on the Solver global website. So I went into solutions in this Solver showcase. There are many examples of reports and budget templates and Power BI examples across many different industries within this environment. So here you kind of saw bank information, you know, all different kinds of things. So if you wanted to go in and look at this and kind of drive the interest, this is a fantastic place for you to go and view information. There's literally hundreds of different examples. And if you just open up an example, it gives you a screenshot and you can go on to the next one and so on. So with that, I am going to move back to the presentation and talk about some of the benefits of Solver versus what you had with BI360. So first of all, BI360, there will be no future enhancements to BI360. It is in the sunset mode. It will probably be supported for another 18 months. The only thing that will be enhanced in the BI360 environment will be support related issues. In other words, to keep it running as technology changes, you know, whether that's SQL Server or Excel or any of that, those will be the only changes. There will be no functional changes to BI360 moving forward. So the big benefit for Solver, aside from, you know, all of this stuff that you saw today, is number one is that it's in the Azure cloud, and it's, you know, there's nothing for you as a client to manage. There's no personnel that you need to throw on this to keep the application running. That's all done and managed by Solver. So 99.9% uptime running in Azure within Australia and soon to be in New Zealand as well. So within a local environment and backed up within another Azure environment. So it's very safe. You know, you're not paying for the DBA to continue to run this application or their time. You're not paying for servers or infrastructure to be able to do that, okay, to run Solver. Archive reporting we talked about today, easy online report sharing. So you kind of see that with Archive or with sharing that with other users across the system. Playlists we talked about today, report packages, all of this is so simple to do. Budget assignments and workflows, again, we talked about, so super important. If you want to create a budget assignment, you want to pass it out to, you know, a single template out to 50 people, you build one template, 50 different people can contribute to the same time or at the same time via assignments. Power BI integration, we just barely touched on that, but there's a lot more coming with this in the future, I can tell you that. And then a whole lot more. a lot of new stuff that's been released and a lot of other stuff that's on the roadmap as well.